Did that look scary? Don't worry, I wasn't doing anything nefarious like hacking the federal government or anything like that. Just simply setting up a lightweight virtual Linux OS on my Windows machine, and you'll be doing just that by the end of this video. You'll be able to install a virtual machine, run an Ubuntu server, and perform crucial updates on that operating system, all before you can finish saying the word Ubuntu. Ubuntu. I'm Allan, and welcome to my free web series on Linux for complete beginners. Maybe you want to work as a system admin in the future and need to learn the operating system. Maybe you're a Windows user and you want to get away from that sweet grip of Bill Gates and Microsoft. Or maybe you want to learn Linux for penetration testing or ethical hacking. Whatever your reason for being here, this series will get you from a complete Linux noob to being confident in Linux over just a few videos. If you're new to the channel, welcome. Make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell so you're aware when each new episode comes out. And if you find any value in these videos, please feel free to leave a comment. So you're probably thinking, yeah, but I don't have a Linux computer. How do I need to go out and buy a Linux computer to learn? No, you don't. There's a very easy solution to that. We're going to install some software called VirtualBox. VirtualBox is going to allow you to create a virtual machine inside your Windows computer. So you'll kind of have a computer within a computer, like two computers in your one computer. It's called Virtualisation, and it's pretty cool. So let's get straight to it. Open up your favorite browser. In this case, we'll use Google Chrome. And type in the address bar www.virtualbox.org. The link will also be in the description. Move over to the left hand side of the page and click Downloads. Click Windows Hosts, and that download should start in the top right hand side of your browser. Let that download and we'll start installing. Once that's downloaded, we're going to open the installer by double clicking. Click Yes to the UAC prompt, and we're going to click Next, yes, and yes, and we'll click Next. So all the defaults, and finally click Install. Press Finish, which will start VirtualBox, and you're done. I mean, how easy was that? You can now create one or more virtual machines inside your physical machine with just a click of a button. But for the sake of this tutorial, we're just going to install a quick Ubuntu desktop virtual machine into VirtualBox. Let's do it. Okay, let's go back to our browser and let's type in ubuntu.com. We're going to download our Ubuntu image so that we can load it into VirtualBox. Up the top, click Get Ubuntu, and then click Download Ubuntu Desktop. You'll see the download 24.04 LTS, or whichever the latest version is, a green button. Just click that. Your download should then start in the top right hand corner of your browser. Once that download's complete, open up VirtualBox and we'll click New. Give your virtual machine a name. We'll call it Learn_Linux. Choose the folder where you want your virtual machine to reside. And in the ISO image section, click the down arrow, click Other, and select the Ubuntu image that you downloaded earlier. The type and version should default to Linux Ubuntu, and click Next. So the next section is hardware. This is where we're going to allocate resources from our host PC to the virtual machine. So it's good to know what the requirements are for the Ubuntu operating system. As Linux in general is a very lightweight operating system, we should have more than enough resources to allocate to it. So let's take a look what's required. It requires a minimum of 1024 meg, and we can allocate 2048 megabytes of RAM, which should be more than enough. It requires 5 gig of storage for ISO install, so that's us, but the suggested minimum storage is 25 gig or more. So make sure you've got at least 25 gig available on your host computer in order to run this virtual machine efficiently. As a general rule for Linux installations, you should just allocate 2 CPU cores. That should be more than enough, but if you don't have that option available, you can try it out with 1. When ready, click Next, and you should see a summary of all of the options we have here. Once you've clicked Finish, you should see your new virtual machine ready to turn on. So let's go ahead, turn it on, and complete the installation of Ubuntu. Just make sure you've got highlighted the Learn Linux or whatever you called your virtual machine, and click the Start button. your virtual machine will launch in a new window, and you should see a little label here that says Install Linux. So click that. Now we're going to accept a lot of the defaults here. So we'll start with the language, choose the language of your choice. We'll click Next. We'll click Next again. We'll choose English US for us. We'll choose to use a wired connection. And it will tell you that there is an update available for the installer. We're going to go ahead and click Update Now. We're going to then click Close the installer. And on the desktop, we should see Install Ubuntu. We're going to double click that. And we'll run through some of these prompts again, as this is the new version of the installer. We'll click Next, Next, Next. Our two options, interactive installation or automated. We're going to use interactive. Click Next. We'll use the default selection. We'll click Next. And we're not going to install any third-party software at the moment. We'll just click Next through there. It then asks us to create our account, our main account. So I'm going to call it Allan. And your computer's name should default, but you can change that to whatever you wish. And there's also the option to enter a password. So I'll enter a password. We'll confirm that password, and here you can choose to require your password to log on or not. Click Next. It should automatically find your time zone based on your internet connection of your host computer, but you can edit that here. Click Next, and finally click the Install button. And in the next section, we're going to kick off with our fully installed guest machine, and we'll show you some cool things to do in Linux. Before we jump in and learn our first command, let's talk briefly about Linux and its differences from Windows. While Windows is a user-friendly operating system with a familiar interface, Linux offers more customization and control, especially for developers. Linux is open source, meaning you can tweak almost any part of it, while Windows is closed source, limiting its customization to what that pesky Microsoft allows. Where Windows is used in personal and business environments, heavily focused on its graphical user interface, most Linux users like to use the command line to manage things like web servers, automation, and other types of servers. When it comes to security, Linux and Windows take different approaches. Linux is often considered more secure because it's open source, which means the community can patch any vulnerabilities quick smart. On the other hand, Windows being the most widely used operating system generally makes it more of a target for malware. Alright, so here we are. We're at our login screen. Let's log into our Linux virtual machine for the first time. Okay, so what next? Well, if you purchased a laptop from a store, the first thing you would do is you would perform updates. So in the case of a Windows laptop, the first thing you would do is run Windows updates. We can do that same thing here in Linux. So to do all of our updates, we're going to click the button down in the bottom left here, which will show apps, and we're going to jump into the terminal. So we better get familiar with this terminal because that's really what Linux is all about. To perform our software updates and our Linux updates, we're going to just run one simple command, and that command is sudo apt update. It's going to ask us for our password. Yeah, that was quick, right? With just that command, we have pretty much done the equivalent of Windows checking for updates. So when you run an update in Windows, you would go check for updates. It runs, and then you would download your updates, which we're going to do in the next section. Before we do that though, we're just going to touch on a crucial aspect of that command we just ran, and that is the sudo part of it. What the hell is sudo? Sudo is a powerful command in Linux which stands for super user do. Essentially, sudo allows regular users to execute commands with administrative or root privileges. It's kind of the Linux equivalent of run as administrator in Windows. By using sudo, you can perform tasks like installing software or updating systems, like we're doing in this case, without needing to log in as the root user, which is always good for security. For anime fans, it's kind of like how Goku turns Super Saiyan temporarily to elevate his powers. After he's done, he goes back to his normal self. To complete our system update, we're going to run the same command, except instead of using the word update, we're going to replace it with upgrade. Okay, so let's do it. We're going to type in sudo apt upgrade, enter, and we're going to enter our password. It'll then pop up and ask if you want to continue. You're going to press the Y key and press enter. The system will now run a full update, ensuring that all software are their latest versions. The progress bar indicates how far we've come along, Well, those updates are complete and it only took about 15 seconds. So our first session is completed, we've got a fully up-to-date system and we're now going to shut down our virtual machine. You should be able to see the power symbol up the top right hand corner. After clicking the power symbol, just click that larger power symbol in the top right and that'll give us our options to suspend, restart or power off the machine. In this case, we're going to switch the power off and we'll confirm. Let's summarize what we learned in this first edition of the Learn Linux web series. We learned that the equivalent of running a Windows update check is to run apt update, and we learned the equivalent to run a Windows upgrade is apt upgrade. We also learned that run as administrator on Windows is similar to sudo on Linux. And that concludes the first episode of Learn Linux for Beginners. In the next video, we'll be looking at more basic commands. We'll be looking at file operations, moving files and navigating directories, as well as taking a look at how the permissions work on Linux. Thanks for watching and see you in the next video.